Hi everybody, and welcome back to Lost Genre Reddit Stories. This post is from the subreddit True of My Chest, and it's by user Twafor. My wife, 31 female, asked me, 34 male, to choose between my mom, 55 female, and her, and I think I'm going to divorce her. A little background. My mom and dad were both orphans. My dad died 2 weeks before I was born, and my mom didn't really have a support system, so we were just the two of us. I never lacked anything because my mother worked all her life to give me the life I have today and didn't even have time for herself to start a new life again. She did all the little jobs possible so that we didn't miss anything. She deprived herself of food to give me food. I have very good clothes while she had none. I saw her make sacrifices again and again, and always with a smile. Frankly, I always thought she was an angel dressed in a human body. The only time she yelled at me was when I was 16 and I saw her getting sick and working at the same time. I wanted to help her finding a job, but she was angry and told me it was not my job to take care of her and it was up to her to take care of me. She wanted me to get really good grades to get into the best universities. It's the only way I can protect myself when she can't anymore. Even at university, she didn't want me to work. I had to be focused on my studies, but she wanted me to volunteer so that I could be an adult who could do something with his hands. I met my wife there while both of us volunteered. My wife is a good person, but she was never close to her parents or her siblings. Yet she adored my mother since she met her. There were times when I thought she loved my mother more than she loved me, and we laughed about it. Deep down, I think she was looking for a bond between mother and daughter that she did not have from her mother. When I finished my studies, I found a job and we moved in together, but she wasn't comfortable that I would call my mom every day. Mind you, those were 10 to 15 minute calls. Eventually, she stopped bringing it up. 2 years later, I bought a house for my mother because we never had a house in our name. We lived from apartment to apartment. So for all the sacrifices she made, it was for me the least of it, and it was non-negotiable. That's where the problems started with my wife, then girlfriend. She wanted me to think about us first. I told her my dream had always been to buy my mom a house since I was little, and that's what I had to do. But she complained about it to my mom. My mom didn't even know I bought a house for her as it was supposed to be a surprise for her birthday. She wasn't comfortable with receiving the house because of my wife and told me that wasn't necessary and that we could use it for us when we get married. I was furious. I told my mother that the house was for her and that she could do with it whatever she wanted, but it was time for her to think about herself first. Our relationship survived that. We got married and then we had our own house. Our life was going well until 2 months ago when my mother fell ill. I wanted her to come and live with us so that I could take care of her, but my wife didn't want to. I then decided to rent an apartment with my own money right next to our house so that I could be closer to her and go there to take care of her. But even that idea didn't sit well with my wife. My wife and I don't have children yet, we both work. I usually come home at 6 p.m., but since my mother is sick, I go see her and come home at 8 p.m. On weekends, I see her for 1 or 2 hours, and the rest of the time I spend it with my wife. We go on dates, I always accompany her in her hobbies, even though she never went to mine. 2 days ago, she told me that she thought about it, and she thinks I prioritize my mother too much. She told me that I had to choose between my mother and the life I want to build with her. The truth is that I never made her feel that way. We both work, but I'm the one who cooks and I pay a person to do the housework. I make sure I do the dishes that she likes. She doesn't even know what I like to eat because I never complain. I run her baths, give her massages, buy her flowers, I write her poems that I hide somewhere in the house for her to find, and we go on a trip 1 weekend a month. On top of all that, I earn much more money than her, but I told her to keep her money for herself and I would take care of all the bills, even hers. I always make sure to listen to her and consider her opinion, and I think I am easygoing because I can change my mind to accommodate hers. But I realize that she tries to completely dominate me, and the only subject where I don't give her a choice is my relationship with my mother. So there, I'm going to have to talk with her and establish some clear boundaries. If she doesn't want to, well, we're going to divorce. Just want to get it off my chest. Well, since it's a true off my chest post and OP didn't ask for any advice, I can't give him any. I don't think it's cool for OP's wife to ask him to abandon his mom while she's sick. And if she doesn't like the close relationship that OP has with his mom, well, then she needs to talk to him about it, instead of just outright giving an ultimatum like this. So if they have the conversation, hopefully they will reach some sort of compromise, like maybe once the mom is not sick anymore, OP, instead of calling her every day, he calls her every other day or something like that. So what do you guys think about this whole situation? Let me know in the comment section, and now let's move on to the community comments to see what they said. LeftDebt8770 says, I am wondering if we aren't missing some information here. Does your wife do absolutely nothing for you? The description of your relationship is a litany of all of the things you do for your mom, followed by all of the things you do for your wife. Down to you paying for everything, doing all chores, doing all cooking. Is that for real? Then yeah, I'm with everybody else, but maybe first ask your wife clearly what bothers her about the situation with your mom. I get that you love and support your mom. The challenge with your party of two is that it doesn't sound like there's room for a third, your wife. Is she not equally your family now? Did you present this stuff as, let's do this for my mom, or was it, I am doing this? If the latter, not much of a partnership. I don't know, if this is verbatim all legit and there isn't more nuance that your wife is feeling neglected, then yeah, might be time. But it's also possible she feels forgotten in your life and maybe you can work through that. Scooby-Doob says, you were blessed with an amazing mother and you're not going to regret being there for her, I promise you that. My fiance has a crappy, abusive mom that we can't really be close with. But if she was even half decent, I'd support him taking care of her, and I'd also help. That's family, that's love. If all you wrote is true, I do think your wife is being incredibly selfish. If someone ever tried to limit my time with my ill mother, I shut them down in a heartbeat and tell them they're free to pack up and leave. And OP responds, thanks for your kind words. Yeah, I know I am blessed, and honestly my mother never asks for anything, never pushes on anything, she is just happy for me and my wife. She doesn't even know what my wife thinks. She would be very hurt as she loves her. My wife once said she was jealous of my relationship with my mom as she never experienced a decent one with her own mother. But I don't see why, if I ask what I'm doing wrong, to give me an example so I can understand her. She had a hard time to find something other than I should have bought a house for us first, and she didn't get over that yet. Her mother is abusive, but she won't stop trying to beg her to be a good mother since she knew my mother. My heart hurt each time her mom disappointed her. I love her, but I don't want to deal with it anymore. I am in so much stress right now and I need support. She doesn't even have to help me, but she has to respect the relationship I have with my mom and my decision to take care of her in her time of need. Brightstar says, the way you paint your relationship and your wife, it just feels very one-sided to me. I wonder what story your wife would tell, because you haven't listed any positive things your wife brings to the table while praising yourself to the heavens. It feels quite lopsided. If that's true, then you have all the reason to divorce her. P.S. You do say that you never made her feel that way, but that isn't up to you. All you could say is that you tried to not make her feel that way by doing XYZ. And OP responds, yeah, you're right. In my post, I didn't do justice to my wife because I was upset and overwhelmed when I was writing it. But my wife is a wonderful human being and was with me even before I had money. And I didn't praise myself. At least I didn't want to sound like that. I was trying to make a point that I wasn't neglecting her by giving examples. And that's right too. What I can say is I tried to not make her feel that way. Additional information from OP's comments. I have my own company. It all started with an idea I had, but I couldn't make a prototype because I had no money. Investors need a working model before deciding whether it was worth investing in or not. I was going to give up, but my mom gave me a savings account that had enough money to make the prototype I wanted. She saved this money for about 20 years. She told herself that if she were to die, she would leave me this money because she had nothing else to give me. That's the kind of mother I have. I said to myself, if she believed in me to give me all this money, it's because she really thinks that I will succeed. From there, I never had any doubt about what I should do. In a way, she is the first investor in my company. The house I gave my mom was simply my way of saying thank you to her. It's not something I take pride on because I could never repay her for all that she did for me. Now, the house I bought for my wife is where we both live. She was also with me when I had doubts and struggled with money. She supported and encouraged me, so I really don't understand the problem. Before my mom got sick, I only saw her every other weekend, although I communicated with her every day and my wife thinks that's too much. My mother has her own life, her own hobbies and friends. I always encouraged her to start a new life, but she still has her wedding ring and has never forgotten my dad. So I stopped pushing her to meet someone and she lives her life very well. But since she is sick, I asked my wife if my mom could come to our house. She refused while asking me not to tell my mom because she doesn't want her to know she refused. I don't really understand where the problem is. I'm still not convinced that I prioritize my mother because for me, it doesn't make sense. We are all from the same family. I'm going to have a talk with her this weekend to see what we can do because she doesn't realize the more she behaves like this, the more she pushes me to leave. Finally, and to be very clear, my mother has never in my entire life hung the sacrifices she made for me over my head. She never asks me for a single cent. In fact, I am the one who wants to give her money or buy her things even if she does not feel comfortable receiving them. I just think that since she was abandoned when she was a baby, she never thinks she is worth people caring about her. She never minds my business. Once I complained about my wife to her and she said she can't give me any advice without hearing both of us. Also, my wife has a great relationship with my mom and speaks to her every day, so I really don't understand what she wants, considering she wants the mom-daughter relationship she never had. Alright, well, Pete got some pretty good insight from the community that apparently is helping him make some decisions, and we got a lot more context to our story. So now, let's move on to the update to see how this story ends, but before that, let me remind you about this playlist that's right up here so you can enjoy more stories that also have updates. Now let's move on. Hi guys, I keep getting messages asking me for an update. I wanted to do it sooner but couldn't spare time to do it properly. First of all, I would like to thank everyone for the comments and DMs in my last post. I tried to reply to everyone, but I couldn't. I read you all though. Anyway, before confronting my wife, I had time to reflect, and I came to the conclusion that I will never again let anyone in my life dictate the relationship I should have with my mother or the time I should dedicate to her. So I decided to answer the ultimatum, but first I wanted to know if there was another reason why she gave me this ultimatum. She replied that nope. I asked her, apart from what she blamed me for, if there was something she wanted to tell me but couldn't tell me. She said there was nothing and asked me to come to the point, so I told her I wanted a divorce. She remained frozen. I think she was shocked because she wasn't talking. She was just staring at me. I tell her everything that was on my mind, that our values are too different. I was going through the worst moment of my life. My mother was sick. We did several tests with her and we still don't know what she's suffering from. We don't know her medical history because she was an orphan. It makes me anxious to know that overnight I could find myself alone in the world. Yes, alone in the world, because in these difficult times, all I needed was her support. But if my own wife thinks that I should give less attention to my mother who is sick and who needs me more than ever, it's time to go our separate ways. She still didn't say anything, so I told her I'm going to a hotel for now and we'll discuss later how we're going to separate. I took some of my things and left. The next day, when I went to see my mother, she figured out something wasn't right, but I was not going to tell her I was separating from my wife because she could not bear our relationship, especially since she was sick like that. I didn't want to add more torment to her. I never discussed my marriage issues with my mother anyway, except for the one time she shut me down. So she does not know our problems, and honestly, she adores my wife too much, and my wife behaves as if she was her own mother, so I was not going to tell her what she was thinking behind her back. My mom ends up telling me that my wife didn't come by that day. Yes, my wife, who asks me to reduce my contact with my mother, was seeing her every day, and I never asked her to do anything for my mother. She calls my mother Mom. When she gets sick, she used to go to my mom so she will take care of her. It used to hurt me because it was as if I couldn't take care of her, but she said that this was not the same as the attention of a mother is different. I told myself it was her way of creating a mother-daughter bond that she never had, and I understood her. She said her mother used to tell her that she was not supposed to be born, that she was an accident, and that she almost terminated her and regrets not doing it. Only a monster could say that to her child, so I never said anything whenever she wanted my mother's attention. Besides, I received enough love to share with whoever wanted. My mother, after I left home to study, became a foster mom for children. She did this until 2 years ago. I have always loved each of the children with whom I still keep in touch and whom I consider to be my siblings. Once a year, we all go on vacation together for a week. The children, my mother, and my wife. I generally take 2 months of vacation, of which 6 weeks I devoted to my wife, but the 2 weeks that I devote to my mother and the children were too much for my wife. Anyway, I'm rambling, so when my mom told me she didn't come to see her that day, I went back home because I was worried. I found her in the bathroom with her clothes and red eyes like she had been crying. Seeing her like that was unbearable. I helped her out, but this woman who has so much pride collapsed in front of me with a lot of crying. I don't know if it was an hour or two, but she kept crying, calmed down, and then crying again. I just stayed silent. She ended up telling me that deep down, she never wanted me to be any less involved in my mother's life. She was always jealous of our relationship. She was always jealous of the attention my mother gave to the other children. She knows that it wasn't rational, but she couldn't help constantly striving to be number one in my mother's heart. It was kind of a competition for her, so when I wanted to take care of my mom, she didn't want me to be the one taking care of her. I was honestly furious without saying anything, of course, but I wondered if she was a psychopath or something. We are talking about a person who is seriously ill, and she is thinking about her damn competition, even if it means sabotaging the relationship I have with my mother and putting us in a situation where I wanted to divorce her. She told me that she was very jealous of me and that she would have liked to be in my place. If she had to choose, she would have even chosen to be my mother's child rather than my wife, even if I was the love of her life and the only man she knew. She also told me that even if the world falls apart around me, I will remain stoic. That I live as if I don't need anyone, and that I give everything to others, but I don't know how to let others reach me, and she never managed to get there. Only my mother could get there. At that moment, I did not know what else to say. I was hooked on the idea of competition, so I did not immediately grasp the scope of these words, but I still listened to her to the end. I put her to bed until she fell asleep. Then I went to sleep in another room. In the morning, she acted as if nothing happened. She was being herself. She said, I don't have to pity her. I told her it was out of love. She was still my wife. She left for work and I did the same, but decided to stay at the hotel for the time being. During that time, I wondered what I could have said or done to make her think this. Deep down, I think she's right. It's a defense mechanism I've had since childhood. I've never stayed in one place long enough to make friends, and it was heartbreaking every time we had to move. We moved more than 50 times between my 5th and 15th years of age, from apartment to apartment, from hotel room to hotel room, and since then, I think I have always lived my relationships like a squatter. I never unpacked and settled in because I knew at any moment I could be fired. But I thought that with my wife I acted differently, but I guess I didn't. So I thought maybe we didn't need to go that far. What we needed wasn't a divorce, but therapy. Then this happened. A little over a week after our discussion, I was called from the hospital. My wife had been hospitalized. She apparently did not feel well. I went to visit her, but she didn't want to see me. If you saw the eyes I saw, I've never seen so much hate in just 2 eyes. I told her best friends so she can have her support system because she didn't want me there. I told my mom and she asked me what I had done to my wife so that she ended up in the hospital and that I should not stress a woman who was pregnant. I said, "What?" She told me my wife told her and asked her to keep it a secret because she wanted to tell me herself when she was ready. I don't know what was going through my head, between anger that it was my mother who told me or happiness to be a dad for the first time and total confusion at the surreal situation. I went to my wife and told her I knew, but she looked at me again angrily and told me she had lost the baby and it was my fault. in an instant. I just get the news my wife was pregnant but kept it from me, that I was going to be a dad and that we lost the baby, and that she was accusing me of having caused something that I didn't even know. She asked me to leave and I left. I always wanted children, very early on. My wife wanted to put her career first, and I understood and accepted. I've been trying to convince her for years, but without success. Now she gets pregnant. She doesn't tell me anything. She talks to my mother about it, and she says I caused her miscarriage. Since then, she says she didn't tell me anything because she wanted to first confirm if I could deal with all the responsibilities I give myself and raise a child at the same time. I don't understand her, and I admit since then I have had a fierce hatred of her. I don't know how to look at her without anger, and I don't want to hurt her with my words. I take care of her at home, but we don't talk to each other. I'm not going to stay with her. It's not possible. I started a session with a psychologist. He told me that patience was my best weapon, that I shouldn't make a permanent decision on emotions that could be temporary, and that I should take time to see if there were things to salvage. Here is where I am. I don't think I'll do another update. I took days off to be there for my wife and my mother, but I'm feeling pretty depressed and I just want to get away from all this BS right now. Thank you in any case for giving me your opinions, your support, or your criticism. Wow, OP, I am so sorry that you've gone through all of this. It is such a roller coaster of a story. But I absolutely agree with you. Your relationship with your wife has been nuked, and I think you both could benefit from a psychologist or therapist. All the best in the future, OP. Thank you for sharing, and take care. Now, I don't know about you guys, but I definitely need a mood booster now. And it's gonna be a post from Malicious Compliance by user Papagallo, charging me for something extra that never existed. Fine, I'll pretend like it did. I was using a storage company to keep my stuff over the summer, and they already fudged up the first part of the delivery, so I wasn't having high hopes for the time when I was supposed to get my stuff back. I had sent 7 boxes to the company, but received a quote for 8 boxes instead, and the surplus they charged on it was quite a lot. I wrote to them asking why there was this extra box, and they never replied to me to say that they'd look into it or cancel the charges for the 8th box that didn't exist. I called them every week and the line was bogged up every time, and emailed them nearly every day because the situation was just so stressful. They kept saying the extra charge was because I stored an extra box and they can't do anything about it, despite me being explicitly clear in all of my correspondence that there was no 8th box. Now that they've asked for confirmation that I received all my boxes, I said that after 2 months, I still haven't received the final box. I got my delivery charges refunded as a goodwill gesture. Not that I would go back to them ever, but the satisfaction now lies in the idea they are tramping around the warehouse trying to find a box that doesn't exist. If they still haven't found the non-existing box by month 3, I might just as well demand reimbursement for no loss on my part. Aside from the extreme annoyance I suffered throughout this unpleasant ordeal. OP's update. Yay! They finally admitted it didn't exist and refunded me! The stubbornness just made them walk their warehouse a lot of times until they finally realized that they were wrong. Thanks for sharing, OP! And that's it for today's video. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch it. Now, if you've gotten to this point in the video, I assume that you like these stories that I'm reading out, so here are a couple more that you might enjoy. And if you don't have any time to watch another story right now, save it for later, and also, don't forget to hit that subscribe button.